Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 121. Panic stations or too early to tell for some of England's elite? We take a look at the domestic troubles facing Leicester in the 2019 relegation battle. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. Probably a slightly shorter one this week. We went on a bit last week, but we had with good reason. But I'm joined today by Dan, as always. Hi, mate.
Cheers, wie geht's?
Sorry, I'm joined today by Dan, as always. Hi, mate.
Oh, sorry, mate. I thought this was our German one.
No.
It's the English one. Okay,
that's
cool.
on Fridays.
That's on Friday. Freitag. Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's been an interesting week. We've got lots to talk about. We're going a bit domestic this week. It's unlike us.
Naughty.
So yeah, got a few things to talk about there, and yeah, we'll see how the episode pans out. We haven't really got much of a plan for this one, so sometimes they're the best ones.
Well, yeah, there's nothing like displaying our incompetencies to the audience, but let's go for it.
Exactly. Well, before we do that, let's just cover a couple of comments we've had from people. Firstly, and I'm actually not going to go into too much on this one today, but our old friend Budgie Jointed has, as we've requested, sent us his squads for the Barbars game. So
cool.
That's brilliant. We will deal with that, and we'll look at that, but we'll save that for a future episode. But I just wanted to, he's obviously sent the email through, clearly given it a lot of thought. He's given us a squad for both England and for the Barbars. So
oh, wow.
Really appreciate that. And yeah, as I say, we will come back to this in a fugether episode. Do not fret. But thank you so much for contacting us and sharing your wisdom.
Without getting into detail, how does it look?
It looks good.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna
save it. Yeah, sorry. What am I doing? Let's
save
doing? That for a relevant episode. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But thanks, Budgie.
But yeah, appreciate the you getting in touch with us. And as I say, yeah, we will definitely cover that on a future episode in the not too distant future, of course. We've had one other review on iTunes. This one was from Ted Cord 74. He gave, it's an interesting one. He gave us 5 stars, always appreciated.
Thank you.
He calls it weapons grade hubris. He says, this podcast has an innovative format, namely the schedule of recording, which takes place before, during and after an international match. The format does provide some frankly hilarious moments as myopic, tub-thumping overconfidence before a game subsides into world-class, statistically based excuse-making once this mentally fragile England team gets found out. The sheer number of its ifs and buts spouted off by this pair of Ruperts is trying to justify throwing away a 30-point lead to a second-string Scottish side at home is eye-watering. Frankly, this is essential listening for any Celtic rugby fan every time England get ahead of themselves and come a cropper, which, let's be honest, happens every 15 months or so. P.S. The podcast photo art is beautiful. Thank you. Fair enough.
I think he has described the podcast absolutely perfectly, and I don't think we can have any grounds to argue on based upon what had happened. The only difference between the way we describe it and the way he describes it is his use of the English language is far more superior than ours.
This is a true fact. Yeah, look. One, appreciate the fact that you're not a hardcore England fan. Clearly, as a Celtic supporter, I don't know which of them, but the fact that you're tuning in and listening to what we have to say, and I hope that the 5 stars reflects that it is you are entertained by it, and of course as we've always said, we are openly biased and will always be, and sometimes that kicks us in the nuts a little bit like a few weeks ago. But,
yeah. Thanks, Scotland, you pricks. It was mate. Have you listened back to that podcast?
I haven't. No, I try and.
It was. I've got to admit, when I'm listening to it, I cannot believe, literally everything I said. I was like, "This is 100% going to happen." And then obviously we watch a half or something, and that's 10-second gap to the listeners, not longer for us. My next comment is the exact opposite. So I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm a moron."
But do you know what? That's why I like this episode format. No one else is doing it, and I think if we'd waited until the end of the game, we would simply have focused on the negatives,
of course,
like everybody else did. And I think by doing it this way, it means that we get to, sometimes it does bite us in the arse, but it offers a slightly different perspective, perhaps, which is a bit of fun. And that's what it's meant to be. So hopefully that is what Ted was identifying there. And yeah, definitely, look, if you're a Celtic rugby supporter, don't ignore us because of the name of the podcast. Listen in, and when things go horribly wrong, you can have a good laugh at our expense. But
exactly.
Appreciate you getting in touch, Ted. So and thank you so much for the 5 stars. So yeah, that was it for this week from the reviews. But guys, as we always say, you want to get in touch, you can email us englandrugbypod@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter and Facebook @englandrugbypod, or you can head over to iTunes and drop us a rating and a review like Ted did, and let us know what you think. We'd really appreciate, obviously, any time you can take out of your busy schedules to do that. But anyway, on to today's episode. And the big talking point at the moment, the big thing in the media is obviously relegation and Leicester and the risk that they're the kind of the risky area that they're currently sitting in, given their 5 or 6 current England squad members, and what happens to them in the event of worst case scenario. So
there's a couple of things. So firstly, there was still chat about whether relegation or promotion will happen. Nigel Melville has said, and I can't see it being otherwise, relegation 100% will happen this season. And I think that's almost definite. There's 5 matches left to go. They're not going to suddenly, change it so that if in future that happens, maybe, I don't know, but I hope not. But this season, there definitely will be relegation.
Is needed, I think.
I agree. I understand the argument for there not being relegation and promotion, but I think it takes away so much. But yeah, it's not just, we're focusing on Leicester this week because that makes sense. But realistically, before we're focusing on for relegation battle, are Leicester, Newcastle, Worcester and Bristol, as I think pretty much everyone else is. Leicester are the key ones because of the England players. But let's not forget Worcester and Newcastle on a lot less scale still have England players in there. Newcastle with Wilson, Worcester with obviously Teo, and you can argue Ted Hill as well. It's Leicester, I think, is our focus because of the immediate and sort of longer term potential impact.
Well, yes, 6 England squad members.
Strong squad members as well.
Yeah. A good 4 or 5 of them guaranteed starts. 4 of them definitely. It's not guaranteed, but they're up there. It's a worry, right? If they were to go down, I know that it's been said that they would still be selectable. Of course, why wouldn't they be? But it's not about that, is it? It's not about whether or not you're allowed to select them for England. Surely the impact on them as players, given the drop in quality of the rugby they'll be playing throughout the season. Given the kind of the mental impact that has on you're supposedly some of the best players and meant to be some of the best players in the world, you're not even playing in the best league in your in the country in which you play your domestic rugby. Like, that's a problem, right?
So yeah, I'm looking at it 2 ways. So obviously the championship selection part, there's form for this before. I know there may be more, but I know off the top of my head that Chris Pennell was selected to play to tour New Zealand with England when he was at Worcester in the championship. But so that part, fine, so be it. But the 2 ways I'm looking at this, first and foremost, is the impact it would potentially have on the England team at the World Cup. Now, not saying from a player perspective, because that they'd have played. It's not as if they'd have not had the top level rugby because it's sort of off season in that time. But it's about where are your head at if you're those 6 Leicester players. And let's be clear, not all of them have guaranteed release clauses.
No.
And I suspect to manage like he does, but he's just committed to Leicester, having turned down a huge offer from Racing. Will he then pull out on that? I don't know. Maybe he will if they're relegated. But where is your head at thinking? I know England's a different concept, but it must be such a low just being relegated. Is your head at, you're not really in the right frame of mind? Or is your head at a place where you're like, that was shit, now let's go and do something amazing?
It's a difficult one. I think look, there are 5 games left in the season. And that's massively important because what these players help Leicester to do or not do over the course of those next 5 games will have a massive impact on the World Cup and where their heads are at going into the World Cup. So, at the moment, Leicester are, we're saying that they're in this relegation battle, but they're certainly not at the bottom of that 4-way sort of split.
No.
It's both you and I think agree that they're probably not going to be the ones that go down. We'll go into the fixtures that are coming up, and I'll talk about why I think that in a moment. But I think if Leicester if the worst was to happen and Leicester were to go down, I don't think that it's possible to simply go, okay, guys, come on, we've had a shit season, let's go and sort it out the World Cup. I think it is a problem. I mean, there will be players thinking about their futures. There will be players questioning what they do next. We don't know what all their contracts look like. Do some of them have release clauses? Will they go even if they, because I think it's a very good. It's a high likelihood that the team that goes down is the team that's going to come up next season.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think that it's something that they can simply say at the end of it, oh, that was a few bad days at the office, and now we need to focus on the World Cup, crack on, and it not affect them. And I don't know. The problem is I don't know what does Eddie do. With so many of them, it's not like Eddie can just go, yeah, it's not going to work for us anymore, or it's not like they're all
especially
fringe.
with which players as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's not like they're all fringe players where it's sort of it was touch and go before. This has just made it an easy decision. It's like you've got key players that you're going to need to include. It's worrying.
So it's interesting because it's not necessarily even just about relegation. It's about how long. It's only 5 games left, but how much longer do the players will they know their fate? If it goes down to the last weekend, does that emotional turmoil between now and then, does that also affect their chances? Bearing in mind there is quite a long time, but I bet if they stayed up, but it was only at the last weekend.
No, I think in that situation, the high of managing to do what needed doing, even if it did take until the last weekend, would potentially be enough to put their kind of mindset in the right place for going back into England training and doing what they need to do with England. But let's look at the fixtures and let's talk about why. I mean, at the moment, Newcastle are sitting bottom of the table, 29 points, and Bristol, of those 4, are sitting top with 36 points. So there's, that's a pretty good cushion for Bristol at the moment. I say pretty good cushion. It's a reasonable cushion. 7 points. Leicester 2 points behind Bristol on 34, and Worcester in 11th place, 32. What's probably more interesting is when you look at the fixtures, and from Leicester's point of view, okay, they've got Exeter, Newcastle, Bristol, Quins, and Bath in that order.
So what I find interesting, and bearing in mind Exeter to me is home, and this may sound a ridiculous thing to say, but that's what I'm all about. But to me, Leicester can win all of those games, but they can also lose all of those games. So let's just give that a bit more detail. If they had Exeter at Sandy Park, they were away to Exeter, I would say they can't win that game. I think their toughest game there, Quins away, I think is very tough. I can't see them beating Quins at the Stoop. I can't see them beating Exeter, but then what they have got, what kind of puts this in their own hands in a good way, is they've got Newcastle and Bristol. So the next 3 weeks, Exeter, Newcastle, Bristol, that is huge. If they lose those 3 games, my God, they're in trouble.
I mean, let's look at it from a different angle. If Leicester were to win one of their remaining games, no bonus points, so they'd get 4, right? So they would then be on 38 points.
Yeah.
That would be in theory, their end of season. They win one of them. Let's say they beat Newcastle. So they're on 38.
And no bonus points in the rest of the game. It's not even a losing bonus or something.
Well, for the sake of argument, we'll assume that.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have a shocker, but they managed to pull off a win in those last 5 games, which I'm sure they will do. I can't see them losing all 5 of them. So they're on 38 points in that scenario. Newcastle, they got Saracens up first. They're going to lose that. Leicester, we've just said they lose that.
Well, do they? Have we said they lose that?
Yeah, in this
So
hypothetical.
that's the game Leicester wins for Newcastle.
Yeah, hypothetical,
Okay,
right? So they lose that. Northampton, currently 5th. I think they probably lose that. Gloucester in 3rd. They probably lose that. And they've got Bristol in their last game. And let's say they pull off some miracle and they win that game. That puts them on 33.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying. But Newcastle are in quite good form. And bearing in mind, they have got... So say Saracens, Leicester, say we put them as losses. Northampton they have at home and Bristol they have at home.
Okay, fine. Look at it from a different angle then. We've got Leicester, Bristol, Newcastle and Worcester all fighting it out. Newcastle, Leicester and Bristol are all kind of playing each other.
Yeah.
Right? So they've all got each other in the mix. Worcester, on the other hand, who, although they're 11th, they're not last, they've got Wasps, Sale, Gloucester, Northampton and Saracens. That's 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 8th on the table.
I have Worcester going down, I must admit.
I think there's a very real possibility that Worcester lose all of their remaining games.
I think they'll pull off a win somewhere. I don't know where. Maybe Sale at home. Maybe even Northampton. Worcester have got some good results this season. I still think. Okay,
I guess what I'm saying is because they're not playing any of the teams that they're fighting against, they don't have that big game that can completely change things. With the others, beating one of the guys they're competing against, that's a massive scalp and makes a huge difference.
Worcester had that last week when they beat Bristol, but they don't now.
Yeah. Well, exactly with what's remaining. So I'm with you. I kind of feel like we're talking about Leicester and the risks to Leicester. And then there's Newcastle and Bristol. I think Worcester are the ones in the most trouble at the moment.
I agree. So let's look at it from Worcester's point of view. So Worcester have Ben Teo. He's a fairly integral part of the England training squad, and Ted Hill. Now Ted Hill to me is an outside shout, but potentially an England choice, potentially World Cup.
For who? Short of injury.
Well, so if we've got him as a 7, I mean, he's played some class rugby. So say an Underhill or a Curry.
Okay, so this is nice because that gets me to something else. So I made a bit of a sort of list of potential back row players for England for a World Cup. I looked.
Why the hell did you do that? Where did that come from?
Why not? But
nice.
2015 squad, England didn't take because it was in England, but they had 6 back row players in the squad. Obviously, they had 4 locks, of which at least 2, if not 3 of them, could play back row as well. So it was cover. But they took 6 back row players. Looking at the England options, and I haven't got Ted Hill on the list, but I will add him now.
Please do.
You've got Billy and Tom Curry, who I think are shoo-ins.
Yeah.
You've got Sam Underhill.
I think it's a shoo-in.
Mark Wilson.
It's shoo-in.
Brad Shields.
Not a shoo-in.
Nathan Hughes.
Deserves a shoo-in.
Ben Morgan. Matt Kovacic. Zach Mercer. Chris Robshaw. Don Armand, we know, won't get a shout. You've got Sam Simmons, and then you've got Ted Hill. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Wow.
Out of 6 spots if the kind of the format was to follow the 2015 format.
I don't see the need in taking more than 6 when you have, because the likelihood of having the amount of injuries is unlikely, but plus you've also got Courtney Laws and Mara Toje who can slip in the back
exactly.
row.
They're offering cover. I just don't see where Ted Hill slots in. I don't see him slotting in ahead of Brad Shields. I don't see him slotting in ahead of...
Where I do is as a 7, if you're going specialist 7.
Okay, but you've got Tom Curry and Sam Underhill.
Curry and Underhill. And
which brings me on to another point that I wanted to talk about, something that I read, and I don't know whether this was old news, and I picked it up. I found a website and it had this quote. Might have been recent, might have been older, but something Sam Warburton said, which is, why not play Curry and Underhill? 2 7s with Billy at the back. You've got Billy as the big ball carrier, but both Curry and Underhill we know are ball carriers as well as sort of snipers. They can, they will generate turnovers, but they'll also carry the ball. You've got Billy doing the big carrying and heavy kind of through heavy traffic. Why do we need to have a 7 and a 6? Like, what is the purpose of the 6? if you like.
Oh my God,
in layman's
I love
terms.
that thought.
And don't get me wrong, Mark Wilson's been awesome, and I'd like to see him continue to be involved. But question for you: like, why do we need what is the layman's terms purpose of a 6 if we're saying that a 7 is kind of there to, I don't know, generate turnovers or kind of be a bit just annoying to the opposition? Is the 6 a second ball carrier? Is that one of the key roles? I mean, obviously you've got to make tackles, but.
So firstly, any 6s out there, please tell us your purpose. Please tell us why you are worthwhile rather than just a useless piece of shit. No, I'm kidding. I love 6. My issue with that is since Richard Hill played 6, I've never questioned the need of it because he was so integral. But it is a good point. What's the purpose of a 6? I guess a 6 is possibly, I'd say historically a 6 is maybe a slightly more physically intimidating or physically more powerful player than a 7.
Somewhere between between
the 7 and the 8, ironically. So it's a great point. I love the sound of but that's historical. The game changes. I love the sound of 2 7s playing. I mean, I think Wales have formed. I think they've played Tipperick and
well, it's, we think back to 2003, and obviously, it was very much a 6 and a 7, and they very much played the traditional roles of a 6 and a 7.
Yeah,
but with Tom Curry was one of our stronger carriers, I think, in the Six Nations.
Tom Curry was awesome.
Despite, in theory, being there to be the guy at the bottom of all the rucks, stealing balls, and which he also did. Making tackles, which he also did. So, and we know Sam Underhill does the same sort of thing.
It's for 6 because we've had some good 6s. I mean, even a Robshaw, 6s tend to be, and you look at like Richard Hill, 6s do tend to be absolute workhorses, whereas a 7 might be more of a. 7s are just psychopaths, basically, just nasty little bastards. But you want that, and they'll get in and they'll fight for the ball. They'll, first up and chop those tackles. Whereas a 6 does tend to be more of a workhorse. But there's no reason a 7 can't be a workhorse.
Because if you look at Curry Underhill with Billy at the back, we know Mark Wilson has been brilliant at 6, but he kind of came onto the England scene at 8.
Yeah.
So he potentially offers cover at 8, as well as at 6 or 7, or 6, because you're assuming your worst case scenario is only one of them's getting injured, and that maybe frees up a place on the bench because we already know we've got back row cover in the form of the second row options.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Rather than having a flanker and a number 8 on the bench.
Yeah,
pause for thought.
It is pause for thought. And we've done because don't forget Robshaw and Haskell when they were both playing had that 6.5 put on their top. But they were probably, in my mind, I'd say they're both more 6s than 7s.
It was more like playing 2 6s rather than playing 6.5.
I would rather play 2 7s than 2 6s.
I think so. I think they disrupt the game more, and with their carrying ability, they're still both physical players.
Yeah.
So, I think that sounds quite interesting. When I first read it, I thought, what's Sam Warburton saying? Something to get under the skin of the. And then I read it, I was like, no, actually, that's awesome. Why can't you do that? So there you go. That's something I would like to see. Curry and Underhill together.
So we digressed there. That was about Ted Hill and Worcester going down, wasn't it?
It was.
All right, so basically, if Worcester go down with Ben Teo, we need to focus on. Yes. And you, in a very knowledgeable way, let me know that Ted Hill is not in the running. So thanks for that.
You're welcome. To me, Ben Teo, given his kind of commitment to Worcester over the years, and everyone kind of going, you're a Lion, you're an England player, you're playing for a team that isn't guaranteed to stay in the Premiership, he surely has a release clause.
I also think that Ben Teo is leaving this summer. I'm sure I have heard that he will be leaving Worcester this summer anyway. Purely from an England perspective, purely if you're looking at it from an England fan perspective, and this is not taking clubs into account because I like all the clubs, I have no issue. You want Bristol or Worcester to go down because it has the least impact on the England national team.
Yeah, 100%. I think, regardless of who you support, unless you're obviously supporting one of those two teams, rugby, I don't know, maybe it's not the same for everyone, but I feel like rugby generally has less of a football mentality when it comes to supporting a specific team. I think people, as as sort of naff as it sounds, it is more about supporting the game. You tend to pick a team you want to win. Well, you tend to kind of pick the team you want to win in the match that you're watching, as opposed to being a hard. I mean, I know you're a bit of a Gloucester fan, and they're perhaps slightly unique in that respect, in that they are all crazy fans.
And I think we're underselling some. I mean, some people are hugely. Where I think it's different from football is the absolute passion towards the national team. Whereas I don't think football. I think, and again, I'm not speaking for all fans. I think the vast majority of rugby fans support England first, whereas the vast majority of football fans support
club first.
Club first. Yeah. I could be wrong there, but that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Right, and as you should.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, I think because was it Bristol that he's been connected to? Not Bristol, Bath. Sorry.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
It might be, but yeah, I mean, obviously, if he's leaving anyway, it's not an issue for him. But I suspect that isn't the case, and if he is contracted to stay with them, I would expect, given the commitment that he's given to them, that he has a release clause, and
he must,
and that it will, be put in place, whatever the word is, utilised if they are to go down. And I feel like that's the most likely scenario, looking at the four teams at the bottom and the fixtures they've got coming up. But rugby's a crazy game, and strange things happen, and Newcastle could go and have Worcester could go and have a string of results that puts them in a position where a bonus point makes all the difference. It's difficult to know. But I think, that on paper, that to me looks like the most likely scenario. And I think probably the best scenario from an England perspective, as you say.
What, Worcester?
Yeah.
Well, no, Bristol's the best because there's no England players from an England perspective.
Yeah, that's true.
Plus, but I don't want to see Bristol.
And we didn't like them. The Shoguns, as they used to be called.
Oh, they had some absolute proper toolboxes playing there at that time, didn't they?
Oh, yes.
What was the name of the fullback?
Lee Best.
Lee Best, you are a prick, my friend. I'm sure you're not.
Lee Best and Ben Sternham.
No, I'm not sure you're a nice guy. You are an absolute bellend.
This is.
But that's our person. That's nothing to do with rugby. So
no, it's not at all. Lee Best would go and chat up your missus, and then when you said, "Mate, can you fuck off? She's got a boyfriend." Ben Sternham would come and punch you in the face.
Yeah. And bearing in mind, Ben Sternham was like 6'5", and these guys are like 18.
Yeah.
So
good guys.
You're a man, Ben Sternham. Yeah, you're super tough, you fat prick. It's again, that was not rugby chat. That was just our personal experiences, not personal experiences, and it didn't happen to us, but our experiences of seeing it happen. But moving on, rather than our little
we probably should move on, before we get in trouble for, I don't know, I'm sure we've done something wrong in getting personal. I guess the point of all of this was that all the media is focusing on Leicester and what if. I feel like there's a long way to go still, and I think all the questions of how it will impact the players. I think the next three games, as you mentioned, are key, and for Leicester in particular, because two of the teams that they're competing with for relegation are in their next three games. Yeah, I think at the end of that, when Newcastle and Bristol have both played Leicester, that's the time to then either start saying, phew, or starting to worry.
I think that's spot on because, like you say, 2 of the 3. I think it's fair to say, I'm going to make a prediction here. I think it's fair to say Exeter won't be relegated, and I'm going to stick by that prediction.
I mean, it's bold. It's a bold call.
Bear in mind, it's mathematically impossible for them to finish in the top 4. I'm thinking they won't be relegated. But
bold call so early.
I know, but mate, that's what I'm all about.
Well, fair enough. Because what is there? There's a maximum of 5 points. isn't there? So 25 is available.
Yes.
So Newcastle could, best case scenario, Newcastle could get to 54 points.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that just highlights how far away the end of the season is.
Yeah, it's so far, and it's so close. Like Leicester, I can't remember who's above Leicester, but I think they're only a point above Bristol even. It might be Northampton or something.
No, Wasps.
They're only a point ahead of.
Yeah. So you could argue that they're also in the mix.
Yeah.
And then above them, you've got Bath on 39, only another 2 more points. So you could argue that they're in the mix, or that's 10 points between Bath and Newcastle at the bottom.
But that's 2 games.
But that's two. Yeah, that's two bonus point matches. So yeah, it's. I guess we've made a big song and dance about what's going on domestically and how Leicester are in trouble, but there is a long way to go. Do you think there are enough teams in the Premiership?
Yes, purely from. So I think the Premiership has to go one of 2 ways, and I don't think you can do the second. I actually think you either have to go to less teams. No, actually, that's bullshit. I don't think you get less teams. You could either stick with teams or you go significantly more teams, but there aren't good enough teams. You can't ask for players to play more games.
What about if you had more teams, but you didn't play
only
home?
Played them once.
Yeah, you don't play home and away every season. You alternate by season.
So that was the sort of thinking, and if they ring fence it, that's the thinking. But the reality is, there's not enough good teams out there because you don't want there only being. So say you move it to 15 teams, for argument's sake, then you only play 14 games a season. Commercially, that's not viable.
Yeah.
Actually, as a fan, you want a lot more. You do want more games than that. And the reality is, if you look at the Championship, which other teams could realistically, even given a couple of seasons, could maybe compete in the Premiership? There's not many. I mean, London Irish or possibly Ealing Southlanders where they're playing. Maybe Yorkshire, Carnegie. But it will take a while for these teams to compete, and it will take away something from competition because you will have the teams who are just
should they
never
get rid of
compete.
Yeah. Should they get rid of the playoff?
So getting rid of the playoff was a shame because to me that was the best game in rugby, those Championship playoffs. Which obviously they don't do anymore.
Yeah, I mean like the Championship games at the top. Not the playoff. What do you come on, Dan, help me out.
What are you on about? I think you're on about the playoffs. What, when the Championship teams play to
find out who wins? Not the Championship, the Premiership.
Oh, get rid of that.
What's it called? Why am I being so thick?
It is for playoffs, isn't it? Why have you now confused me?
Well, I don't know. You threw me with all your chat about.
I thought you were on about Championship. Why are you messing with me?
Basically, what I'm saying is, at the moment they all play 22 games.
Yeah.
Except the top 4 play more than 22 games.
They play 24, yeah.
And so with all the chat,
23 or 24, yeah.
So with all the chat about trying to reduce the number of games that people play, and obviously those games being so vitally important, why not just scrap them and just say, do you know what, you've got 22 games to reach the top, and whoever ends on the most points wins, which is how it should be.
It kind of is how it should be, but it also adds a lot of excitement.
It does, and it makes a lot of money.
Yeah, so I don't think you can get rid of that just yet. I don't want that to be got rid of either.
Fair enough.
Because I also think that it's finishing top, and although this is sort of a reality anyway, every season at the moment it'd be like, oh, Exeter or Saracens, yeah, fine, they're going to win, doing that. And although they tend to do that anyway, just in the playoffs, just having a Quins or a Gloucester sneak in, you're like, oh, this could be interesting, especially as a fan of one of those clubs. You're looking at it thinking, is it likely we're going to beat whatever Exeter, Zanzibar, Saracens at the Allianz? Is it likely? No, but there's a chance, and that does add a bit of excitement. Like there was a chance that Scotland could come back and draw against England at Twickenham. I mean, it was never going to happen, but, at least there's a chance that could happen.
This is true. Fair enough. I'm not really sure where we go from here because we kind of went into this with this whole kind of we need to talk about domestic rugby and it's a disaster but actually I think we've established it's too early. We need to wait 3 more weeks or 4 more weeks or however.
Well, that was a time well spent. So I don't think we need to go into much else because Guys, next week, our podcast, we will be... It won't be strictly when we record, but roughly our 2-year anniversary. And what we are going to do... Andy, I'll let you set it up because you're the one doing the legwork for this.
Oh, am I? I wasn't aware.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't let you...
Thanks very much. We're going to take a look at the all-time most capped England 15. So that's looking at obviously the most capped players in each position. I did see something similar somewhere, which is what gave me the idea, but I didn't go into much detail. And we thought, do you know what? It's been a bit of a rocky Six Nations, ups and downs. World Cup's coming up. It's our 2-year anniversary. Let's celebrate England and let's go. What does the most capped ever England team look like? And I think it'll be interesting because there are a mixture of current players kind of and legends, if you like, certainly of the recent times, because of course by doing it on caps you are ignoring some of the older legends when England just simply didn't have as many fixtures. But yeah, we're going to take a look at that, and we may, depending on how much time that's likely to take up, we may also then take a look at our budgie-jointed suggestions for the Barbars game, because of course that's one of the games England have got left between now and the World Cup. But
I think we'll wait to do that.
Ordinarily, that wouldn't be a first team.
Yeah, exactly. I think we'll wait to do that. We'll wait till the end of the season maybe to do that, or we'll wait till later because you know Budgie's putting a big effort. I feel like we owe him and our listeners a big effort on picking that team.
Fair enough. So yeah, the plan is to focus therefore on this celebration of England, the all-time most capped team.
Doesn't sound like us.
It doesn't sound like us. I mean, that's just not something we would normally do.
Exactly.
We're normally so negative about
Wow,
England.
exactly.
But yeah, that's the plan. So if you've got any ideas, guys, on that, obviously there are certain things you can't really have ideas on because they have the caps and the team will be what it is. But maybe we'll look at our all-time England 15 if we were choosing it, which I believe we might have done in the past. I can't remember. Something rings a bell.
We have done. Yeah.
So maybe we'll look to compare what we said then to what the caps statistically suggest the team looks like, and do a comparison that way. But yeah, that is the plan for next week. But yeah, get in touch. Let us know if you've got any ideas. As we've said a few times, we have had some ideas in. We will come up with a bit of a plan to put a few different things together between now and the next time England come together. But in the meantime, thanks obviously for listening once again. And we will catch you guys next week. As we said at the beginning, if you want to get in touch with us, englandrugbypod@gmail.com, or you can reach out on Twitter or Facebook at englandrugbypod. And if you get an opportunity, we'd really appreciate if you head over to iTunes, drop us a rating, drop us a review, let us know what you think, because that is how we get noticed, and it's how we hopefully can grow between now and the World Cup. It's not that far away now, so we'd really appreciate any of that. And of course, we'll read out whatever you have to say in future episodes. So please do get in touch, guys, and we'll catch you next week.